Lunch break is 60 minutes. Short and sweet. I was working 50+ hours weekly for a huge corporate bank on salary. My apartment was 1 mile to my office and both had rental bike stations I used regularly. My boss at the time was a time cruncher and regularly disregarded the overtime I was working to point out a few minutes here and there. One day I went home for lunch, walked my dog, got on my bike, and within 30 seconds was hit by a car. EMTs were called to the scene but nothing was broken. Clothes were ripped and I had road rash, blood. Called my boss to let her know I'd be back a little late due to the crash and she told me lunch was to be 60 minutes only and I would face repercussions if late. So I didn't go home and change, went right back to work where the head of the department immediately called me in seeing my ripped, bloody attire. Explained what happened and told him I would not take more than 60 minutes ever again, regardless of circumstances. My boss was pleased but I was sent home to change. A few weeks later they asked me why I stopped working 50-hour weeks. Well, if lunch is only 60 minutes, then work is only 8 hours. And I haven't worked overtime since. I will never understand how the clockwatcher managers can be so short-sighted to see how being a dick about a few minutes here and there will bite them in the end. If I had an employee working 10 hours longer than they were paid for, there is no way I would give them crap for a few minutes here and there. Many years ago, I worked for this small company. We were all salary. The boss would make it obvious that he'd look at the clock when, if you walked in, and would complain if we got in a few minutes late. Then, he wondered, complained why everyone left at exactly 5 p.m. Duh. Lieutenant Cole would occasionally stand by the front entrance to the building recording what time we came into work. Nominal reporting time was 0800. You would think a Lieutenant Cole would have better things to do, but whatever. I rarely was there at 0800 and got called into said Lieutenant Cole's office to explain. Mind you, I was a 20 years senior NCO at the time. Me. Mom, will you be here tonight at 2030 hours when I actually leave for the day? Lieutenant Cole, why are you leaving so late? Me. Well, as a major command we have installation around the world and I schedule the telecoms to be convenient for them. This evening I will be working with our site in Guam which is 12 hours off from us. Lieutenant Cole, never mind. Never heard from that Lieutenant Cole about my reporting time after that. Go figure. Please tell me you are looking for a new job. Reap what you sow. How do people like your boss look in the mirror in the morning? SMH. Well, if lunch is only 60 minutes, then work is only 8 hours. Amen. Dedication goes both ways. I say this as an employer: never, ever, work unpaid overtime. You are selling your skills, knowledge, and time to your employer. Get the full value out of it. Rarely will your employer care that you are giving them free time. Never work for free. Dear fucking God. Is that right? Your boss looked pleased. What the hell? These people don't deserve you. Start looking for a better job. You were working 10 hours a day and the B couldn't give you an extra hour to get yourself sorted. God damn. Well, if lunch is only 60 minutes, then work is only 8 hours. This is the way. Big corporations. Ugh. I work for a big US one, not in the US. Used to regularly work those high 40s, 50-hour weeks. But we haven't seen any decent pay rises in more than 10 years, no matter what our annual rating is. Even cost of living raises are as rare as hen's teeth. My solution is to cut back my hours each year, in line with inflation. No pay rise, 3% inflation. Fine, 3% fewer hours out of me this year. Doesn't make much difference at first, but 10 or 12 years in and I'm working a lot less, enjoying my life more. What the fuck? A car accident of any sort is immediately off for the day to take care of yourself, and as long as you need to recover. What a shit employer. You deserve better, op. Good Christ. That is absolutely terrible, and I hope you're okay. I hope you find a better job. I started getting particular about my hours at my last job too, though it was not nearly as tragic. Pre-COVID, I always worked 9:20-ish until at least 6:30, sometimes 7. Edit. I didn't always want to work that late, but Atlanta traffic was more manageable the later I worked. When COVID hit, I was 9:30, 6:30 or later. No issues with starting at 9:30 for almost a year. Then one day, I logged on at 9:35, and I was told my tardiness was not well received. So from that moment I worked 9:05:30 with exactly 30 minutes for lunch. They never got more than 40 hours out of me, sometimes less. Worked one counter job, 7 guys on the counter. 3 guys, half-hour lunch, 1 floater, other 3 guys half-hour lunch after the first group came back. Boss said if busy, come back out, work X amount of time and go back to lunch, adding the time worked onto the end. You could literally lunch 5 minutes, work 5 minutes, repeat as needed until you got in your whole half hour. Not very relaxing. I started eating my lunch in my truck or going across the street to eat. My half-hour lunch is mine and I wasn't breaking it up for anyone. Pretty soon the rest of the crew followed suit. Wow, your boss is like top-tier horrible. Their response to, I got hit by a car, was, you better be back from lunch on time. Great story. But people who give more time to their company than the company deserves are absolutely crazy and make it worse for the rest of us. Yep, this is the way. I had a similar issue at a previous workplace. We had a 60-minute lunch breaks and 2 10-minute smoke breaks. One day I was called out because I used to take longer smoke breaks and work over my lunch, so I said, fine, I'll take all of my breaks out of the office, and did for the remainder I was there. I made sure that I was not available for that whole 60 minutes. They tried saying, oh, you don't need to do that. I was like, yes I do. Nobody here has any idea of what big bank culture is. LMAO. You sell your soul, work extra for no extra pay, and you like it. The people that stay know they can leave and not do it. The people that leave decide the extra money from the toxic culture isn't worth it. It's a trade-off, and you end up putting yourself in a better spot after suffering for a few years, if you do it right. As you should never give them anything free. You are just a number. I'm sorry you had to deal with such a soulless, heartless person. I can't even think of someone like that as human. Your boss reminds me of some of the characters in the movie, Frailty. If you've seen that movie you know which ones I mean. Imagine, if you can, working retail. Willingly working overtime to get the job done. And then getting yelled at because overtime is a no-no. But if it doesn't get done, more yelling. And then it doesn't get done because you were getting yelled at on company time for an hour instead of trying to get that thing done, resulting in more overtime. Lose, 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 and then repeat. We get an hour lunch. I usually finish my lunch in 15 or 20 minutes and get back to work. Been doing that for years. I never got paid for working through lunch. Never. Maybe 10 years. Been late to work by 5 or 10 minutes a few of times and got a talking to. Now, I make full use of my hour lunch. Expose this to our anti-work. The proper response to management watching your clock is always to watch your clock even more closely. If they want to insist that you stick to their timetables, then you stick to them exactly. It sounds like you never needed to work those extra hours in the first place. Good on you. Give them what they ask for. Legally you have to be paid for all time worked. Good for you. These people are not healthy and do not value humans as humans, only minion workers to keep cogs greased and turning. After seeing this same behavior in nearly every corporate job I've had for over 30 years, I've learned that only you are an advocate for you. They only get from me what they've indicated they're willing to give in return. I know my worth, make sure you know yours. What the fuck, how is this even allowed? A car crash warrants a day off. What the fuck? Exempt employees are supposed to be exempt from clock watching. If your boss is going to nitpick lunch hours, do not work any extra time. Never let them steal your time. They'll never appreciate it and they will come to just expect it. Any answer from the boss other than, damn, hope you are okay, take the day off if you need, is wrong. After being told that you were in an accident and all they care for was lunch break last 60 minutes. Threaten to write you up. I wonder if your manager has any friends at all. Gosh, I'd be asking you to do your best, if desperate, but take the time to get washed up. That boss needs to go, that's unacceptable bullshit, and has an effect on morale. WTF. Literally hit by a car and not inexcusable tardy. Tell your boss to F off. No rewards for guessing which country this happened in. This would be a great story to post in our anti-work. Never work uncompensated overtime. If it is required, document it scrupulously and report any wage theft to HR, the NLRB, a union, and whoever else you can think of. Screw the gotta get it done, I'll sacrifice a little trap. The work is never done and you aren't special to the boss. Fuck micromanaging PCS of shit, just let us do what you hired us to do, shit happens sometimes. Don't blame you one bit. One thing I learned early on: do not offer, suggest or volunteer anything outside of what your job actually is, most times that will become part of your job. Go in, do your work in the allotted time and punch out. Banks are notorious for that. They are happy for the free overtime, but extend a break or come in late a few minutes and they complain. Grumbles in 30-minute lunches working upwards of 60. OT shouldn't be time in lieu or a one-off bonus payment. It should be a minimum of 1.5x your base rate paid in that very pay cycle. After you reach a certain threshold either for that day, time of day, day type, working on your day off, or an accumulation of hours worked in that cycle or week, it should be no less than 2x your base rate. It's not your boss saying here's some more hours if you want. It's your boss asking you for a favor to work for longer or come in earlier or on your day off. Holy balls. You probably already know this, but this guy sounds like a douche nozzle. Hell yeah. I think they'd enjoy this over it, as well. Your boss gave you a great life lesson. You should thank her.